Hare Krishna, dear
So,
Vaishnavis, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to
Glories to
Srila
Srila
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
Thank you so very much for attending our sanga for the month of August. And we are so honored. It's actually in so much gratitude, I'm so happy to welcome Her Grace Janaki Devi Dasi. Janaki Devi Dasi joined the St. Louis, Missouri Temple in 1981. She has been engaged in many services over the years, including book distribution, teaching Sunday school, child protection team member, and board member of the NACPO. She has a master's in social work and is a licensed clinical social worker and clinical addiction specialist. She specializes in trauma work. She is also a certified instructor for the right use of power. So I'm so happy again to have her here, and I'm so excited about this class because it's such an important and pertinent topic she will bring to us today, building skills to inspire change. So welcome, Janaki. Thank you so very much for being with us today and sharing your time and association and of course your knowledge. So please take it away.
All right. Thank you very much for having me back again. I came a few months back and we talked about leading without being in a position of having leadership. And so today we're going to be talking about working through and speaking and addressing issues that might come up in our day-to-day lives, especially in our communities, and when we might not, like how to get our voices heard so that we can impact and have some influence and change on the communities and the qualities of relationships that we are hoping to have, because Vaishnava etiquette and Vaishnava exchanges is really, the loving exchanges of the Vaishnavas are really core to our advancement and just to our lives in general. It's like the relationships are vital to making spiritual advancement, and the quality of those relationships really hits the core of our hearts. And so when these go well, it can create a lot of positive things in our lives. And when we're challenged in these areas, it can create a lot of sometimes havoc and sometimes can cause people to lose faith, and how so many other consequences can come when we don't have the skills to be able to impact our situations, or to create that atmosphere in our communities where change can happen. So we're going to look at some of those specific type of skills today, like how to really understand what it is that we can show up for and how we can bring things to the table to influence and have an effect on how we're communicating so that we can see and create the change that we want in the world. And we're going to start this by just doing a little meditation on compassion, just to bring us into the right frame of mind and space as we come together and explore this topic today. So if you can just take a few minutes to come into the room and get grounded. And this is a meditation also on our intention for the time that we have together in our space. Start with just taking a few breaths, putting aside whatever we have for a few moments so that we can come into this with intention and focus. So we're going to be breathing in compassion, breathing out compassion, breathing in compassion, breathing out compassion. Compassion for ourselves, for the mistakes we've made, for the mistakes we will make. for the harm we have caused, compassion for when our intention and our impact don't match, and compassion for the harm caused by misuse of power by others, others who didn't mean, others who knew the harm but did it anyway. And great compassion for the systems that we are embedded in that have caused and continue to cause harm. May our personal and community-wide learnings and increased self-awareness and skill contribute to changes that will reduce harm, repair harm, and resolve situations and issues. May we learn to trust that when we make mistakes, we will be able to be accountable and take responsibility to resolve and repair. Together, we are on a path of good conduct and ethical living. And just take another breath and come into the room together. So a lot of the material that I'm working with today comes from the right use of power. And as Tiffany had mentioned in the beginning, I'm one of the certified instructor in the right use of power. The right use of power was created by a woman named Cedar Barstow, and she was asked by the Hakomi Institute over 20 years ago to develop a system of ethics for Hakomi practitioners. And so that began her journey in working with this and how to explore and understand it. And since then, it's been so many different people in so many different fields have come to learn this skill. There's a couple, like maybe about 200 people worldwide that are have like teacher training in it, but there's many others who have been to other trainings around it. And I find it is just a really nice, comprehensive and very adaptable way of looking at power and how we interact with each other so that we can use this in an ethical way. And so I'm not going to go today into a lot of details on the right use of power, but to share some of the concepts so that you can understand, because I might use certain terminology as I go through. So we talk about, when we talk about power, we're talking about the ability to influence. So it's a very neutral word. It's often charged with a lot of other things because a lot of us have experienced misuse of power, and it's caused a lot of pain. And so therefore we may not own our own power, but we all hopefully feel that we have some influence at some points in our lives, at some intersections.
Hare Krishna, Janaki.
Cannot hear you, Mataji.
So continuing with that, having influence and being able to have an impact on our world and those that we're working with and engaging with. Another concept that we'll talk about is up power and down power. So up power meaning a variety of ways that we might have enhanced power in a situation. So like having a position of leadership in our society, being around longer, being initiated, being, so many things. So in not just in terms of like guru, but in terms of just like being, the head cook for the Sunday feast gives you a sense, an enhanced power, right? Any type of position would fall under the category of up power, and then down power is then the one who works under that. And so our idea is that there's always these different power nuances, but the idea is if we all come together and we use our power effectively, both down power and up power, that can be a very strong dynamic and ability to achieve lots of things together. And so those are some of the basic concepts that I'm talking about today. In particular, what I'm going to be focusing on today is when we are in the down power position and someone in an up power position has either misused their power, abused their power, how do we request and get what we need from the situation? How do we handle those kinds of situations? And what skills are helpful and needed in order to do that? And so we're going to tap into not only things from right use of power, but also other things. The same concepts are also taught like in nonviolent communication. They're also taught in anger management situations. So they're skills and practices that come from a variety of different learnings that we know about what's helpful when we're dealing with conflict, which we can have a tendency to be conflict avoidant sometimes, and that's makes it really hard for us to learn the skills, especially if we're in an environment where we don't see conflict being handled well. Then we don't learn those skills and we don't tend to practice them. So learning how to be comfortable with it and learning how to take care of ourselves in those different situations. And the first, and please, if anyone has any questions, just feel free. We have a very small group today, so feel free to either unmute yourself or we could use the chat and Tiffany can read the questions to me. So if I move along and I haven't been clear on anything, feel free to speak up. Can I do a screen share? Do you have me set for that, to do that? Yeah, okay. No, host disabled. If you can, I think I'm disabled still. Okay, thank you. All right. So one of the first things that we're going to look at is we did the cultivating compassion. So first we're going to talk about just kind of being in the moment when things might be happening and how do we take care of ourselves when those conflicts arise? What can we do to help ourselves to stay fully present and be able to access fully all of our internal resources so that we can come to the table and respond when things might be causing us some internal challenges? And so learning how to stay present and stay focused when that's going on it can be a really helpful tool. So this I got from a book called My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem. And so it's a really nice book talking a lot, especially about diversity issues and racial issues. And in it, he has some very nice, what he calls anchors for helping us when we are there in those situations. So the first one is, oops, I didn't want to do that. Sorry, back up. Okay, to soothe yourself, to quiet your mind, calm your heart, and settle your body. Oops, wait a minute, I'm gonna move this screen so that I can see what I'm writing. So settle your body. All right, So I didn't realize I wasn't going to be able to see my, if I go out of full, I want to go out of full screen and read something on my side, but then I lose you altogether. So let me, I'm going to have to, sorry about that. I'm going to have to exit out of this so that I can read my other things that go along with this. So when we talk about the anchor one, to soothe yourself and to quiet your mind, we mean to first and foremost, stop talking. No matter how much you want to say something, just breathe. And you know, just take that moment not to speak up. If you're holding something, you let it down. If you are sitting down, you know, you can choose, if you're standing up, maybe to sit down at that time. Put your hands on your lap, mentally tell yourself, stay calm, keep it together. Quickly find your internal resources. So whatever you do that can help you, like to chat to yourself, to just to really focus and bring yourself in a calm state. Sometimes it might be helpful just to get up and say, I need to use the restroom, and then come back. But do something to slow it down without running away. And it can be also something as simple as taking a drink of water, open a window, put on a sweater, take off a sweater, put on your chador, take it off. Just to do something to just kind of shift that energy that might be happening for you as you're working on this. And so I'll share the screen again after I go over these so that you can see them all again. Anchor 2 is simply notice the sensations, vibrations, and emotions in your body instead of reacting to them. So pay attention to how you're experiencing being there. Just notice. Notice what your body is, sensations are going on. So just, you know, how am I breathing? How do my clothes feel on my body right now? So bringing your attention to that, and without any type of judgment. When your thoughts arise, just bring them back to your body. This will help ground you. So these are things that are going to help you stay focused and grounded. The third anchor is accept the discomfort. Notice when it changes instead of trying to flee from it. So when you feel an urge to tamp down or push away that discomfort, don't. Just keep your attention focused directly on it, stay with it, and then notice when it changes. And this can be a new skill for a lot of people, because discomfort might be, you know, a tendency then to like change the subject, move on, take a joke, things like that. But instead, just realize, oh, this is making me feel uncomfortable, and don't make any attempts to change it. Just stay in awareness of it. When you get the impulse to analyze or think about the discomfort, just bring yourself back to that sensation. And again, just notice when it changes. Don't try strategies, just notice. And when your thoughts go to the past or the future, just bring yourself back into the present. Remind yourself that this is a protective response, not a defective one. So accepting, experiencing, and moving through discomfort is the foundation of healing. So I'll say that again, because it's really important to understand this. When we are feeling some discomfort around conflict, we're thinking about to be able to accepting what we're experiencing and just moving through the discomfort, because it's the foundation of healing. Anchor 4, stay present in your body as you move through the unfolding experience with all its ambiguity and uncertainty, and respond from the best parts of yourself. So this means when you find yourself moving into the future, the past, back to the present again, When your intention moves from what's wrong with them or what's wrong with you, go back to your first anchor, staying present, noticing your discomfort, staying with your discomfort, just paying attention to bodily sensations. Don't try to know the future, and be honest. If you're asked something that you don't know the answer to, just simply say, I don't know. And don't try to rest or finagle any particular response for anyone else, right? So you're just staying present, you're trying to hear, you're trying to listen, you're trying to engage, but you don't have an agenda that you're working on. And then act from the best parts of yourself, from your own deepest integrity. And as events unfold, sense what these parts are. So really think about that integrity, being true to your word, and being focused on the qualities that you want to represent, that we are learning and exploring and developing as we practice spiritual life, as we're working on ourselves. As things unfold, we're going to be tapping into those qualities that we are learning about in Bhagavad Gita, and that we're practicing and learning. So we want to tap into those things that really resonate with the qualities that we want to embody as Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, right? The fifth anchor is, after this, is to safely discharge any energy that remains. So sometimes there's a lot of intensity and energy in these situations. And then when we move on, we sometimes are carrying that with us. So we need to practice some skills afterwards. So this is a great time to go into a kirtan and dance and move using our body. It's a great time to notice what our body needs, but especially to thinking about dissipating energy, right? So it's not a good time to do yoga, to sit down and meditation, because that's not releasing it from our body. There's a time and a place for that, but more of what you want in this time is movement. That's more what you're looking for. You want to move it so that it can dissipate and move out and be released from your body. So I'll share those 5 anchors again on the screen, and then if anyone has any thoughts or questions, I'd be happy to explore that. And now I can't get you this out of the way so that I can, there we go. This is when I need 2 monitors, because I can't.
So Janaki, do you want to make the screen share smaller and make your picture bigger, or?
Let me first go to this, and then if you could make it smaller.
If you go look at the top where it says view options, do you see that?
Uh-huh. Yeah, okay.
And see how that works. I'm not quite sure about that, but
View options. I just resize window. Yeah, no, I can't. Now it's like up above. There we go. All right, now I'm better. Thumbnail size. Show active speaker. All right, I'm just going to do it this way. So let me put these 5 ones down again, and we'll go from there. So any thoughts, questions, reflections at all on what we're talking about and what that might mean for individuals?
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is
Yes.
Fatma.
Chai.
Please accept my humble obeisances. Our glories to still Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj.
Chai.
So during this, you said accept the discomfort, notice when it changes instead of trying to free from it. Sometimes when we have this conflict, when sometimes you might have to respond, right? Because other person is asking a question, or they might be furious on you for whatever reasons, and they are expecting a response from you. So what do you do in that situations? How do you act? How do you I guess address it, or you are feeling discomfort? I think with me, what I'm happening is that when the conflict arises, or when somebody is like in a different mood of expressing their anger or frustration, right? Rather than being responding, the situation of mine would be reacting, and then it will be same voices. I think that's where I'm having my problem of being grounded and being quiet. I'm talking about with my kids, teenage kids. So
those teenagers are a great way to practice this. They have this knack of being able to know exactly how to get us to respond. It's like they have a built-in radar for it. So yeah, it's a simultaneous thing. So you're noticing that discomfort, but also at the same time expressing, and also you're going to be teaching them, especially for your kids, to teach them in that moment, like even just naming it. So I'm having some discomfort right now because your voice is loud. Can we sit down? Like, you can even invite them. So like some of these things like moving and stuff. So invite them so that you can have a calmer conversation. So like if everyone's standing up, say, to start with, and internally, you're doing this internally, you're noticing, well, this is feeling uncomfortable. I'm not going to move away from it. And then inviting them, let's go sit down at the dinner table and have this conversation. Here, would you like a glass of water? Or you take a glass of water. And then, especially as a parent, you can set the mood and change the mood so that you're able to do these things. And at the same time, ask them to do that as well. As a parent, it's like you can just say, I notice that you're feeling really intense about this, and I want to respect and listen to you, but I'm having a little hard time listening in this moment. So let's take a moment and sit down and be able to hear each other's voices. And it would really, and then we're going to do that next, is like asking some things for what you need. So learning to ask for, like, and when you speak in a loud voice, I feel really anxious and uncomfortable. And I'm wondering if we could sit down and have a conversation together so that we could hear each other fully, right? So it's a kind of a simultaneous there's a couple of skill sets that you're going to be pulling in together.
Yes,
does that make sense too?
Yes, Mataji. I think it needs a constant practice and some guidance. Yeah, I think
yes.
The way.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
But you got a great opportunity with teenagers. They will teach you lots of things.
Yeah. They're working me out. So.
Yes. I remember those years. So good. Thank you for asking that. Anyone else have any questions, any thoughts about how does this end up in practice, right? There are other things that you can do to keep yourself calm. Different kind of things, like one skill that I teach is, like, if you can keep your core muscles relaxed. So that's like the part where usually people suck in their tummies and they hold them in, right? Because that's just kind of the way we kind of respond to things. But if you intentionally release those core muscles, it releases if you relax those your core, which I mean like in the pelvic area, if you intentionally just relax that piece of your body, part of your body, then the rest of your body relaxes too. You can't hold something else tense without while that part is relaxed. So that's a kind of a personal skill that you can learn to develop too, that allows you to stay present when there's conflict and discomfort. Just one, a slight little attention to that area of your body with intentionally relaxing it. So you brought up like how do we ask for what we need? Because that's a piece. So that part is just kind of like how do we kind of stay in the right frame of mind to be able to do this next section, which is how do we ask for what you need? So we start with the first part, which is you state what happened. So, and this is to be done without emotional language. It's just the facts, right? So, instance, somebody's, is yelling and slamming doors, right? So don't say, when you yelled at me and you slammed the door, that's putting more energy into it. So you would say something when your voice became, when the volume of your voice was raised and the door was closed very forcefully, right? So you want to name it in ways that they're like, I wasn't yelling, I didn't slam the door. You don't want that to happen. You want you want to name it and just describe it in non-emotional terms that can be accepted without argument. So when you put emotional pieces onto it, then that gives them something to argue back about. So that's one reason why we just state what happens without any emotions attached to it. And then you state how it made you feel. Okay. So when the volume of your voice increased and the sound of the door was loud, I began to feel very anxious. Or I became scared, or whatever it is. Here you name the emotion. So that's the next piece. It's like, this is what's going on for you. So I became very anxious, or I became very worried about things. However it impacts you, you name your emotions. And then the third part is it's either a need or what outcome you're looking for. So that means something like you can say it in terms of like NVC, you would say it in terms of needs. Like I have a real need to be connected to you, like in the case of teenagers. I have a real need for us to be connected and to be able to communicate in a respectful manner. So that's what you're looking for and what you want to achieve from it, right? And then describe some of the benefits. I think if we could speak to each other in a way that we could hear each other, then we would both feel more satisfied with the results of the situation. So you're going to describe a little bit of the benefits. We'll both get what we need. Our frustrations will get lowered. So describing the benefits from the situation. And then finally, encourage some discussion. It's like, can we now sit down and talk about it? Is this a good time for us to sit to discuss this further? Can we explore this in more detail at this time? Or can we set up a time that would work for you? So like thinking in terms of like, say, like give an example of that I know myself I have experienced and others have experienced too, is like there's a change in authority and then all of a sudden the service you may have been doing for years, somebody just decides that they're going to give it to somebody else and they don't discuss with you, they don't talk it over with you, they just do it. All of a sudden you don't have the keys to the gift shop anymore. You don't have the next outfit that's being sewn for the deities isn't yours. The Sunday feast is all of a sudden being organized by somebody else. So what you would do in that case, like isn't using something like that, an example when your service has been shifted without any dialogue, to go to the person, whoever it was who made the decision, and just say something along the lines, when the service I'd been performing, name whatever that is, when the service I was, let's say in the situation, when my service of sewing the deity outfits had been assigned to another devotee, I felt really hurt because it was a service that I was very attached to. And I would really like to continue to be a part of this community and feel enlivened and engaged. in doing services that inspire me. And I'm wondering if we could have a discussion around this, because I think it could really end up benefiting the whole community, because maybe my talents could still be used in the future. Maybe there can be some way to collaborate with the other devotees so that all of us can get our needs met. And I'm just wondering, is there a time when the two of us could sit down? Or is there a time when all the parties involved with this service could have a discussion on what would be the most beneficial moving forward? Right. So this is a way of requesting, not there's, you notice there were no like, you did this, right? It's what we call I statements, and we're doing it with clarity and equipoise. So you see why that first section is important in order to be calm, because if you're not calm, you can't state things in this way. You wouldn't be able to have clarity for yourself on how you're feeling or what your outcomes are. So it's really important to be able to stay present and do this. And I can tell you that I'm challenged by that, but I know that when I can do that, and sometimes I have to leave some time and space in between before I engage in that, so that I am able to access this and be in this state. And it might involve a lot of praying. It might be involve some extra chanting in order to be in a state of mind to be able to ask for what I need. But this, and like I said, this comes from a lot of basic anger management teaches these skills. State what happened, state how you feel, ask for what you need. A nonviolent communication is state what happened, name your how you feel, identify the need you have, and then make a request. So these are all typical threads that are present in practically every way of communicating with others and on requesting and asking for our needs. So any thoughts, questions, reflections on these steps?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Haribo. Haribo.
Thank you so much for the session. It's extremely helpful. I feel like these are like I don't know if it falls in with personal development, but just issues that most of these don't cover. This was a reflection just from what I've heard and personal experience that's been really helpful regarding number one, stating what happened. I would love your thoughts and if this resonates with anyone, but one thing is when it's in a very heated moment is to use I statements, because in one sense you're not going to deny. It's very hard to deny what you felt and your own feelings, and you don't in one sense want to do that. But when you keep it to you, then you're not blaming. When you came in through the door, I felt like you were yelling at me, and I felt like you were really angry, and you slammed the door. So in one sense, it does convey your perspective of how you like what the scenario played in your head, but it's saying, because people can't negate your own personal experience. And so saying what you felt, but it doesn't put the blame on them, saying you yelled at me and you slammed the door, because they could very say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, I was rushing here. So, it was out of, whatever it was. So I found that that's probably a little easier too, because when in a heated moment, it's very hard to just be like, the door closed loudly. You raised your voice. It's more like, I felt like you were doing this. I felt this. And it doesn't negate your experience. It doesn't negate your feelings. And it just keeps it's probably just easier, but also it doesn't push the blame on the other person. Yeah,
you're hitting the main points is like, don't attribute something to it, just state, and you can state it in that is a method you can do, stating it how you felt that experience. Yeah, that's fine. Right, thank you. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Janaki. So
Yes.
this kind of goes back to the last slide, but but it also kind of applies to this as well. So I was thinking, as we were going through the last slide and this, when I was thinking about how sometimes when we do try to practice these things,
Mhm.
the other person is still so, upset and angry that it can be difficult in that way, because you're feeling that energy coming from them, and you're seeing how the looks on their faces and things like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I do really appreciate what you said about, once you kind of, you get yourself to stay calm, that you say that, you say, this is what I'm doing. I'm, what's happening now. I'm reacting. I don't want to react to it, or, however
Mhm.
you want to state it. I found that very helpful, because I'm someone who tends to disengage
Yeah.
and just like I'd wait until they calm down. But then sometimes that makes people angry too, because they really want to fight with you, but they're
Yeah.
not participating.
And that, I mean, you bring up a good point about like, how are others responding and what are they doing? And at the end of the day, the only person we can change is ourselves, right? We're the only, and if that's how, but we should understand when they're in that intense too, that they're dysregulated, right? Because they're not coming from a grounded state. And so, and at the same time, we can't make them make a different choice. But we could also say is, Prabhu, I really want to hear. I think what you have to say is probably really important for me to hear. But when you're speaking from that state, I can't hear you. And so I don't want to disconnect from you, but it'll be much easier for me to hear what you have to say if we can bring it down a notch, because I'm feeling elevated when you're elevated, right? So, and they can choose like, no, I'm not going to do that. And you're like, and then you have to make a decision. It's like, all respects, but I can't do this right now. Please, when, I'll take this up with you again. Does this not make people happy? Yes. Is it something that this is about setting boundaries, and this is about something that we don't, especially as women, we don't feel like we have the right to do, but it's something that is really important for us to learn these skills and to do for ourselves and for others too, because in that kind of situation, when everything is really heated, the opportunity for Vaishnava aparad to happen is so prevalent, right? And so it's really protecting not only yourself, but them. Like, because if I'm really heated, I might say things that are really hurtful and really inappropriate. And likewise on their end. And now we have a whole nother problem. So instead of it just being about the door getting shut too loud, now it becomes a whole other dynamic. And so, not that everybody's going to respond in a way that we want them to respond, but we still can stay grounded and still stay respectful. And I respectfully decline to engage in this conversation until it can be brought down. Right? I have a hand. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, those are really good points. They're all real too. We all feel them, right? We've all been there and had that happen. Yeah. I don't know the full name there. SDD.
Oh, yes. Hi, Hare Krishna. This is Shraddhanjali, Devi Dasi. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, I have heard things like this before, and I have tried to follow them, and it is sometimes the case when people are really heated, and I think what you said is true, that let's not talk right now. If you can really manage that. But I have found too that if we if we can calm down, it's not only that we're calm enough to say those things, but if we can dig deep and remember that Krishna loves that other person, it does really mitigate. I found it mitigates my own anger. And I think women aren't allowed to be angry back. And I think it's good to also acknowledge that I am feeling angry.
Yeah.
And anger is okay, but what I do with it may not be okay. But I found that it mitigates my own upsetness when I can see, and even I had very recently, just this past week, a confrontation, and it was that kind of thing about, taking on a service and then the other person isn't actually letting you do the service. And it's sort of like, I offered to do this,
Yes.
like, and it's like, yeah, I'm feeling, and I did use a little bit like, I'm feeling that I don't have any room to do this service. Like, tell me what's going on here. Like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Like, let's get, and I found that if I can somewhere remember to have affection, that's not like even active, but to remember that even if I really pissed off at this person, we're all trying to do our best. And somehow Krishna loves this person so much that they're, I don't need to love them like that. But if I remember that, I feel better. And I don't know if that's, does that make sense?
Yes, very much so. And I find that that's what I was talking about. Sometimes you might have to set away till you can step away so you can get back to that spot,
Right.
So feeling compassionate, seeing them as a sincere devotee of Krishna, keeping that in. So when the emotions are running high, we might not have that in our consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really critical to have that frame of reference, right? And when we lose it, we know when we don't have it. We know when we've stepped away from that. And so like knowing that that's not a good time to engage because we're forgetting that piece. So I said a lot of times, it's a lot of thoughtfulness, a lot of taking the time to reflect, have prayer, to maybe take consult for someone so that we can come into that space of being, right?
A little bit of a protection against aparad too.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
just for our own sakes, even if not for the other.
Yeah. And to see, like, how does Krishna see this other person and what they're trying to achieve? And so, like in the case of like giving you a service, but then they're kind of micromanaging you, and it's like, well, what's happening here, right? And so what is it about, like, it's like you gave something and now you took it back, and what's going on, and what we all have our different experiences of how we bring things into, like, all of our histories we're bringing with us in these situations. And one is like, what does this person not know about what's needed right now? And if we can stay calm in that situation and be able to address, sometimes, it's like, it doesn't really matter. It's like, yeah, I asked you to do that, but you're going to do it my way, or I'm not going to have you do it. And in that case, you can make a decision like, doesn't work for me.
Okay.
It's like, I see what you're after and I can't fulfill that.
Right. And in that situation, once we started talking about it, it was like, I just wanted to help because I know so much about this service. And it's sort of like, but it didn't come across that way, like, and I wasn't sure at that point, whether that person realized that they were micromanaging or not. They had the impulse to help, but there might be unexamined implicit micromanagement impulses behind that, who knows. But when the other person said, I was just trying to help, it made me realize it was sort of like, let me try to do it for a little while, and then let's sit down and discuss how I did it, and how, if you think you could still, like, maybe I'll need your help at that point.
Mhm.
And we came to an understanding of like, okay, next 2 weeks, leave me alone, let me try it, and then we can discuss. And that's a better time to have helpful suggestions than
Mhm.
right away before you even got a chance to do it.
Right. Yeah. And who knows, maybe you, just because you did it differently than they would have done it, doesn't mean it didn't get achieved, right?
Right. And let's look at a result before, and
Right.
let's talk about that. Yeah. So it does really help to be calm, to say, let's discuss this at a later time too. So yeah, these are all great. We all need reminders of these so much.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just approaching it as like, with curiosity. I'm really curious about what's happening here. And this is, I thought I was being asked to do this, but it feels differently. Can you help me understand?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you get something like, well, I was just trying to help. And then you get the chance to say, not helpful,
Right.
but in a nice way. Right.
Right.
And so,
Right.
oh, I appreciate that's what your intention was, right? So we talk a
Right.
lot about, in the right use of power, about impact and intention, right? So the
Oh.
intention of the person in that case was, I intended to be helpful, but the impact was not
Mhm.
helpful, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, and so that's like another area that we, can really explore and look at. It's like I'm not worried, I'm not upset about your intention, it's the impact, right? This is what's going on, because we often see that people often have very, very good intentions, but the impact that they're having doesn't always equal. And so so learning how ourselves to become more aware of what our intentions are and what our impact on others is. And especially as leaders, to notice that. So it's great giving, you're actually in that situation, giving this person an opportunity, this devotee an opportunity to really learn and understand the difference between their intention and their impact.
Mhm.
And if they're really sincere and they want to improve the quality of their leadership, they will be able to like, oh, because if it happened for you, it likely has happened for others, right?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but by being able to deliver it back in a kind way, and that they can receive that and hear that, then in the future they can also be more aware with others and then improve those situations by by making that like starting out like, would it be helpful, and started saying in the beginning, would it be helpful if I gave you a suggestion versus just giving you a suggestion, right?
Right. And when's the right time to give that suggestion? And
Right.
and we have to be aware that we can't just, because it hurt me. I felt hurt.
Mhm.
To not let that hurt burn, bury
Yes.
it, ignore
Yes.
it, like bring it right up on the
Yep.
table. That helps, because all these strategies are most useful sooner than later.
Yes. The earlier we practice them, the less that we spend time letting them grow and fester, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The more we're able to um, address thing in the moment, the cleaner our relationships become, and the more the freer they are, and the more we have the ability to grow. Because when we get stuck in these old things, we're hanging on to them. We're bringing all this every time we're in a relationship.
Right. Yeah. Thinking about it in the middle of the night.
Yep. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's when we know we should have done something different. When we've lost sleep over, it's like, no. That, and I've made a rule for myself that I'm allowed to vent to one person, but when I go to vent to the second person, I got to go back to the first person and say, hey, we need to talk
Right.
and deal with it. Because otherwise you start creating this around a community. They said this, and then you go to another person, they said this, and they said that, and da, da, da. And now you've
Right.
created this whole thing instead of like, hey, I'm just wondering why you asked me to do something and then told me later how I was supposed to do it because I thought I was given, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's between you and them, and that, instead of turning it into a whole issue for the entire community.
Yeah,
Right?
set it on the table, deal with it, and then it goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then it becomes a non-issue. And
right.
that's, yeah. Right. Great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. And then, so now we're going to, we're still got a small crowd, but I'm going to show like how it is. So this was like being in the down power position. Also, the first things are also true about like how to stay present, like even if you're in the up power, how to, stay present in your body, not get, because it's where, whether you have more, have authority or don't have authority, we may have these challenges around conflict. And so both that's for that. So this is like kind of like when you're in a situation where you're asking for something, but it could be even the up power person is needs to say these things to someone too. Like I notice, when I gave a suggestion that you became really angry at me and, you turned away and you wouldn't do it anymore. And I'm just really would like to understand what's going on here. So it can be used both ways. The next section is mostly looking at what do, oops, going the wrong direction. What do others need most? So if there's been a conflict and somebody particularly is in a down power position and something has occurred and they're speaking to you, what are they looking for? What are they wanting from you? And so these are really fundamental steps, and they were the outgrowth of so insurance companies have this goal of saving money, right? So people who were doing medical malpractice insurance were finding that there were so many lawsuits and it was getting so cost ineffective to pay out huge sums of money. So they reanalyzed what they were telling people to say and studied what did people need to know most. So historically what it was, the doctor always said, I'm not wrong, not a problem. They just wouldn't own anything, wouldn't take any responsibility for anything that they did. Wrong kidney, left a sponge in, amputated the wrong foot, not my fault, not my fault. It's like, can you imagine? So people obviously would sue more and more and more. And so they finally figured out not the best strategy to never take responsibility for anything. And they came up with instead the 5 things people need most. And you don't need to do all of them all the time, but to some degree, the more you can do them and the more you especially start doing this process, the less people, the more they calm down, the less that they need. So the lawsuits then went down because people began doing these steps instead. And the first is just acknowledge. Yes, I see what I did. Yes, I took out the wrong kidney or whatever. Okay. Yes, I asked you to organize the Pajari room and then I came in and told you exactly how I wanted it done. Acknowledge what it is that's going on. Just simply acknowledge what it is that's happened, that's occurred. Then, oops. The next step is to figure out how to work this screen. Okay. Understanding. This means I understand that that would be really challenging, difficulty. I understand that that it impacted you in this way. I understand how that might have really interfered in our relationship. You know, whatever it is, like I am understanding, I'm not only acknowledging that it existed, that it happened, but I also understand why that's important to you. I understand why it matters that this happened, why we should talk about this, why things should be done differently. So stating what your understanding about the situation is. And then being able to name regrets. I really regret that I made that choice. I really regret that the outcome, and this can also be, you know, I really regret that my intention was this and my impact was this. So naming what your regrets are about the situation. And the first word is, what have I learned from this? So one of the things I've learned from this, if I ask somebody to do a service, I should be very clear from the outset what things that I have expectations of and which things that they have the freedom to do on their own. Or if I, if I change a service and I don't come to the person first, that there's going to be some hard feelings by other devotees, and that's not what I intended. So what I'm learning, what I'm taking away from this is better to sit down and have a conversation with all parties before I make a change, right? So what have I learned? What have I taken away from this situation? And the last one is repair. Here is what I'm going to do moving forward. Here's what I'm going to do about this situation. And here is what I'm going to do as I move forward. Here's what I'm going to do to correct what has happened. Here's the new policies that we're going to put in place to make sure that this does not happen again, right? So again, you don't have to do all of these steps, and pretty much you want to acknowledge first, like that's like kind of the beginning. What it is, it's more helpful if you're going to make a repair to go through the other steps. But you know, you might just only need to do acknowledge and understand and regret, and everyone's cool and fine. So it's not like you have to do all 5, but especially the acknowledgement piece is like a really important one to start with. So it looks like we have a question in the chat box. What do we got here? Where is the apology? Okay, so the apology is more what's stated in the regret kind of things. I regret. You can say it as an apology if you want. But in essence, this is an apology, but they're broken down into different aspects of what an apology would have to what you would want to be doing in an apology, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions on what do people need? Looks like there's another one. Okay. Oops. All right, even though we have a small group, what I'd like to do is give you an opportunity in small groups. There's 4 people, so we could do 2 breakout groups to have one person have something they want to bring to another person, and that person uses the skills on the first slide of naming, describing what happened, how it made you feel, what you need, what would be the benefits of resolving, and I'll put those in the chat so you guys can see them as you go through. So you're going to use those 5 skills, and the person that's in the role play of of the person that they're speaking to, then you would be looking to do these things, acknowledging them, understanding, showing understanding, providing maybe regret or learning, and just so work through those together. As that, so one person is trying to practice these skills and the other person is trying to practice the other skills, and just see where you get in working through and resolving a conflict. And the person, and we'll switch roles so that you get a chance to try each one out. So when you're doing the one presenting, you name what it is. So I had this conflict with, here's who the person was, this is the situation. You get to you describe and name what it is, and then when you switch roles, the other person names what it is. So what I want you doing is using a situation in which you were feeling like you needed to be able to speak and talk, and you name that situation. The other person role plays the person you wanted to speak or talk to. Does that make sense? Does everybody get that? Okay. So like we can. Thanks, V. And so, so this is like a lot of it. I personally feels like we haven't focused on developing these skills in our movement, and as a result, we have a lot of opportunities for healing not to take place and things to go on, and sometimes that situation can build over time. And so then the next question that I get asked after this is like, well, I've tried all those things. I've tried it for years and it hasn't happened, and it hasn't, nothing positive's been achieved. I can't make any difference. I can't do this. So what do we do then? Like, how do we handle those kind of situations and continue our progress in our spiritual life? And so I have a slide I can share with you on that, on what do we do when we feel like we haven't been able to make progress as much as we'd like to. And what are things we can do for ourselves when, let me see, I'm gonna get my screen, let's see, minimize it, that helps. All right, so how do we work with situations that aren't changing? And sad to say, this may happen in some of our lives. And so a few things to focus on. And again, this is in conjunction with praying, in conjunction with absorbing ourselves in service and getting advice, especially from senior devotees. So one thing is to shifting your frame of reference from what you can't do to what you can do. So I can't make this happen, but how can I achieve something on this end? So making your instead of having your focus and attention on all the things you can't do, put it towards things that you can do. And the second one is find pockets of health within the organization, in this case, within our movement, among the relationships you have, and work with them and rely on them. So if you can't work with a particular community or a particular set of folks, devotees in one area, maybe there's another area where your relationships are healthy, and that's where you get your connection and your life from. So find that area that works for you. The third one is don't treat others the same. Treat others as you would like to be treated, with dignity and respect and a willingness to face and repair harm. So just because others aren't doing and responding in ways that you really would like to see and would be helpful, don't let that stop you from having integrity and facing the decisions and making repairs when you need to make them. So keeping that in mind. So sometimes when people see how we respond, it has so much more impact than we can understand. When they see when we model for them what we are trying to achieve, it gives them an opportunity to learn and to see. And lastly, it's bracket the past, and focus on the future. So, be able to like this, just because this happened, 5 years ago doesn't mean that it's still happening and that I have to still live in that. I think we've been talked about that a little bit earlier about, staying present, focusing on where do I want to go. These are like, I joined almost 40 years ago. It's like there are a lot more new people than there are the other ones still remaining that were here when I joined back in at the end of 81. So it's there. So just because something was done when I first came in, if I hang on to those things and I don't look into the focus on what's happening now in the future, I'm going to miss a lot of opportunities. There is one more, and that's discern when to persist and when to let go. So how long should you hang in there? And when should you make that decision to let things go? And that's something that you want to be extremely reflective on and really take to heart and pay attention and notice what's coming up for you. I recently had this work situation where I was in a job and it just kept going. I'm a therapist, and it just kept moving in a direction where the program was just working with a whole different set of population than what I had signed up for, wasn't working with my skill set. Saw that I was not able to change. We had a director who tried to make changes, wasn't able, and I decided this isn't working. Got another position, just started it. Now it's like, it'll be a month next week. So glad that I made that choice, that I'm now working exactly with the people that I want to be working with. I'm not trying to move an organization in a direction they don't want to go. I am now in an organization who's already going where I want to go, and it's so much easier, and I'm moving with them and I'm going on, right? So being able to make that decision, when is it worth hanging in? So I talked to my colleagues last week and they're still like, yes, we're trying to still make changes. And I'm like, well, good luck. I don't think that's going to ever occur, but if that's how you want to put your energy, then fine. But I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to put it into this energy that gives me enthusiasm in life instead of sleepless nights. And so finding that we have many, many communities all over the world and different focuses and there's so many Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. And so finding those communities, or within those communities, that give us energy and life, and putting into there and let go of trying to change something, and those that don't want to change how they're doing things. And that, again, and being respectful. It's like, by making this choice, like before, I had so much emotion and energy towards the people that were in charge of the other place. And now I'm like, whatever, you have a choice, you want to do it that way. I think it's not a very good choice, but I'm no longer emotionally distraught over it and losing sleep. It's just like, it's not my life anymore. This is now I'm doing something that inspires me and is what I wanted to do. And we all should have that in our spiritual lives. We should be engaging and inspired in our spiritual life. And if we're not, then we should look at it. And if we can't change what we're in, then change where we're put our focus on and what we're going to do. But I recently made that a couple of years ago, moved, had always lived within walking distance of a temple, sometimes very short distance. And it wasn't working anymore for me in that community. And then I moved away. And then all of a sudden, all these opportunities opened up for me to render service, right? I didn't know how it was going to go, but my desire to do service remained strong. And then Krishna just unfolded a pathway. And so we don't know what it is, but to have confidence that if we really want to serve, Krishna will help us to figure it out. So there. So that's pretty much what I have to say. So any other final thoughts, questions, reflections on anything that anyone would like to share? Fee, is that a hand up or is that a clap? That's a clap.
He's applauding you. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I agree with V. Thank you so very much. No, it was a wonderful presentation and so many incredible points and things to work on that you gave us. I mean, you really broke it down so well. And it's also very important. I think it was Shraddhanjali who said, you know, as women, we're not allowed to be angry, or we're not allowed to express what we really want or what we really need. And this gives us a way to do so that, you know, is devoid of a lot of emotion, you know, because we're always painted with that brush as being emotional. So yes, I'm very grateful for all of this information. I can't wait to go back and watch the video again. Oh, and one other thing, will the slides can you make the slides available or?
Sure, I can do that. I can, I'll just send it to you after this.
Yes, you can send it to me. And we did get one request, so.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. I'm happy to share those. Great. All right.
Thank you so much, Mataji. It's so great. So great. This is wonderful session with all the things. But I think putting in practice and having these reflections is the key thing in getting this and data practice. That is the biggest takeaway, I guess.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. I'll invite you if you want to do more with this. We don't know how often we're going to do it, but with Karuna Care, I did a 5-week, 2-hour series and on the right use of power, and just got dug more deeply into it. And so we'll be doing it again with that. Probably it'll be another couple of months. So if you know anything about Karuna Care, it's something that Rambaru is doing. So that is another opportunity to go even deeper into this material.
So Janaki, would you mind sending me the information about that, and then we can put it in our newsletter?
Okay, whenever it comes up again, yes. I'll make sure that we pass it on to you, and then you can advertise it.
Great, thank you.
I'm interested, Mataji, to Tiffany Mataji, whenever it is like, or Janaki Mataji, whenever it is there, I'm interested in that. So
okay,
participate. Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Haribol to everyone. Thank you for your attention and your reflections and care. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, ladies, for joining us this month. And please come back for our next sanga, and keep an eye out for our newsletter that informs you of all the events that the ministry has going on. So let's all just pay our obeisances to one another, and especially to Janaki Devi Dasi for her valuable time, her association, this beautiful wisdom, and all of the time and energy that she put into preparing this for us. So Vancha Kalpa
Patitana Pavanibhyo Vaishnavi Namo Namaha.
Hare
Krishna.
Haribol.
Janaki Devi Dasi ki jai. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Such a wonderful presentation.